we're going to talk about some hemp, though, which you guys please feel free to be part of the conversation, man. If you have some questions, these people from Native Cultivations, not Native Roots, as I mistakenly wrote at one point, Native Cultivations, and they had a garden last year and had a harvest and were productive with it, and they had planned on coming back bigger and better this year. And now that we're in the spring, and I'm sure there's been some work done, and kind of learn about that. Plus, what's going on with this emerging situation at large. It's pretty interesting, man.
There are photos of their outdoor hemp garden available on Facebook. You can check out while we're doing the interview too.
Yeah, why not? That'd be really cool. And Rick and I visited the garden they had last year, couple weeks before harvest, I think, and that was really cool. Some of that shit looked, I mean, if you just walked out of the forest into that field and didn't know necessarily that it was a hemp field, you'd think you were around some really awesome cannabis coming up, getting ready for.
Very exceptional in Michigan. The organization, the openness, the progress to have an outdoor cultivation that's successful in the state. Mark and Toni, thank you for joining us on Jazz Cabbage.
Hey guys.
How you doing?
There they are. Hey.
Yes.
So where are you guys right now?
We're sitting in the car.
If you can say, I mean, there might be some secret location or something like that.
We're sitting right outside of HTG, which is the garden supply company that everybody goes to in Traverse City.
Okay.
There's one by me and Taylor. I think.
Yeah.
So you kind of answer the question by being there. We were asking everybody what your level of comfortability is. You know, as some places open up, are you going right to the stores? And how is it set up there? Are they making everybody have a mask and stay 6 feet apart and that kind of stuff, or what's going on?
Yeah, it's curbside service. So, the people come to the building. We don't allow them into the building, but we do, take their orders, fill their orders, and then we pretty much load everything into their vehicles for them.
Okay.
Retail's had to become smart to adjust to this coronavirus crisis. Is this curbside something you think that maybe it's a service your customers would appreciate even after the crisis is lifted and they can come in full ways?
Absolutely,
I do,
think.
but there is some that really need to be addressed with the employees, because there's a lot of heavy lifting and carrying that you wouldn't normally do. So
that's true.
There would have to be some issues addressed with it for the employees also.
Right.
Yeah. For us with Native Cultivations, we're just we're able to do social distancing while we're planting our stuff, and we're that far apart from each other. But the families, they all live together. So, it's really been our family that's come out to help us with all of our stuff.
Have you had a difficult time recruiting workers, or are you just using the same folks that have always been loyal to you?
Yeah, they're family, so yes, they're always been loyal to them.
Make them do it.
Okay. And there's a couple of guys that aren't family, but the seed guys and the processing guys, they're all ready.
Go ahead, Rick. Sorry.
I was just going to ask about the weather this year. We've seen late frosts. We've seen some crazy stuff. This flooding too. Has the weather impacted your planting schedule as far as your hemp crop goes? Because this is only the second year we've done hemp in the state, so some of it may still be a little experimental.
Yes, this year, we want to get it started as early as possible. And if you don't have a climate control space, it does tend to prolong your starts a little bit longer. So this year we did start way earlier than we did last year, because the license didn't come out so early this year, but we did get an earlier start. We did have to heat our greenhouses for a while until the temperatures came up enough to where we didn't get frost. So I'll know next year that question. I'll be able to answer it better, because this is really the first year that we get it started as much. And, I would have liked to start about, 2 to 3 weeks earlier than I did, but, the weather was what it was.
So last year, it was in doubt whether or not there could even really be an officially licensed season for a long time, but then the state was able to issue some licenses and people got started at a time that you would not have chosen to had, as was the case this year. So you had kind of a shortened season quickly. You did get a crop in, it was productive, but your plans were to come back bigger and better this year. So what's an overview of what's going on now? Where are you in the process now? And what's going to happen at harvest?
Yeah, we've set up 3 greenhouses. Last year we didn't have greenhouses. We didn't have any genetics. We had nothing really set up because we were, we didn't think the season was going to happen because everything was so late. So when MDAR decided to give out the license, it was, hurry up and go. So I had to pick out genetics. I had to, I had already studied a lot of stuff on farming techniques. I just didn't know a lot about reliable genetics. So once I got a good handle on reliable genetics, and I kind of know how to do some of the, breeding myself. So me and some of our friends from Hempire Seeds, we did a breeding project. So now we have seeds for, many, many years to come in the future. And, we will be, perfecting that part of the business as we go along. So the outlook for the future looks really good on hemp. So
Mark, we talked about, I'm sorry, Jamie, did you want to follow up?
Yeah, I just want to say that you've been growing hemp now. And obviously everybody here knows, and everybody, if they don't, should know that it has tens of thousands of uses, and there are many varieties and that type of thing, and lend themselves to different things. So to get started with, a lot of people are doing a lot of hemp varieties that are good for smoking, for getting making concentrates from CBD based stuff, and maybe for some foods and stuff like that. But there's room for Michigan to grow in the emerging hemp industry with like the other types of plants that lend themselves well to like fibrous material for products and all that types of stuff. And the sky seems to be the limit. Where are we kind of in what's going on? Is there any of that happening?
There is at small scales right now. The infrastructure in Michigan is not what we would like it to be, to where we could go full on, so we're trying to, get the infrastructure for the grains and the textiles in place so we can really move forward in the industry.
So iHemp was talking about that at their last meeting. They were talking about needing somebody to come in with $10 million as an investor to get a decorticator into Michigan. Winona LeDuc has a hemp farm in Minnesota, and she does everything by hand. So we kind of follow her lead.
That's very labor intensive.
That her family is a small tribe, and they come out and help with the labor. That's what's kind of happening with us.
You mentioned earlier, we talked about having an outdoor grow, but you also mentioned greenhouses. The role of the greenhouses this year has been to start your hemp seedlings so that when your ground's ready, you're actually starting from seedling stock as opposed to seeds. Is that the role that we're talking about with those greenhouses? That's the role that sets this year apart from last year too?
Yes, it prolongs the season, or not prolong, but it makes the season longer so we can get, better yields on our fields, as long as your amendments are right and, you're taking care of them how they like to be treated, you should end up with good yields at the end, as long as the genetics are what they should be.
I want to let Jamie jump in, but 10 million doesn't seem like an insurmountable number for someone who really wanted to invest and get in on the ground level of Michigan's hemp industry. It seems like empire in the making. Jamie, what'd you got?
10 million falls off of Jim's dresser in the morning.
The guy, he's dripping cash.
Well, we have a couple of big organizations that you guys know about that we're talking to make that change, to make that happen. And they, one of the facilities is an old sewing plant. So
Nice.
that's hoping to be changed.
It's so perfect. I mean, Michigan unfortunately went through, some downturn with the manufacturing sector for a long time. And there's many of these situations around the state where there's an outlying agricultural area. There are manufacturing places that haven't really been in operation for anything in a while, and all the storage and places to sell it and manufacture and all that stuff. So
You have to have buildings that have a certain thickness of floor to be able to resist vibration, to be able to resist the weight of particular machines. And Michigan just happens to have a ton of those places sitting around unused right now.
Right.
To me, it's the perfect match of unused resources and a brand new demand for resources.
is there much discussion on taking a social equity approach in the emerging hemp industry? Any proactive work on that front, similar to what there might be in the MRTMA, or maybe better? There's room for improvement there probably, but is there any discussion on that, focus on that?
Just the only thing that I can see happening is USDA moving forward with getting plans from all the states and all the tribes. But I don't see, the FDA is looking at how it is to ingest it for CBD usage. But other than that, I don't see any more rules and regulations like MMMA or MRMA.
So right now
it's a different thing altogether. I just kind of wondering if there's certainly it could be something that a group or a focus of an organization that wants to be involved in an emerging industry could be taking. It would be nice to encourage that, or make sure that's known that those opportunities are out there. This guy's
I know I'm one of the biggest groups that I know of that I'm part of. And then Comorn. He has the association for hemp down there.
The Michigan Hemp Industries Association, yes.
Yeah.
Planting green trees.
Those are the two. Yep.
Right. So you had a harvest. Was that primarily harvested to get smokable flower, or did you use the hemp for different purposes? And if so, how difficult was it for you to find someone to be able to broker that to the proper end place?
At first, it was quite a task to find people that were willing to buy. There's a lot of, stuff needs to be tested, and it needs to be compliant with MDAR's rules. And, there's a lot of things that go along with it. But once you make these relationships with these people, they know what your product is. They tend to come back. So, in the future, I see that happening more and more with different groups, lots of people. So, it's here to stay for sure.
Yeah. Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah. Did you just have hemp for smokable flower, or did you use part of your hemp to accomplish other uses of the plant?
We did Bubba Lineage for our best smokable flower. It was such a beautiful plant, and we did breed those. We bred Nuvo. We bred Bubba Lineage to Oregon Cherry, and so they look even stronger this year with the Bubba O and the Nuvo O. But yeah, they're incredible. So yes, we did for smokable flower last year, and we have extra plots going for smokable flower this year. And then we extracted all the way through to a distillate, and we used our own processor for that. So it wasn't a problem getting it extracted because we have our own system.
It's not at a huge scale, but it was enough to supply all our products that we're branding and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so that's an additional license that you can get too, right? So at some point, talk about what the licenses are available, if you don't mind, so people know what you're working on.
There's a grow license, which is $100. So you can grow hemp, but you can't really take it off from the farm to be sold if you don't have the processor's license. So the processor's license is $1,315. So if you're going to be in the whole thing, you should really get the processor's license and the grow license. So you're looking at about $1,450. And in the near future, I hear that they're going to be raising those prices or adjusting the prices somehow. So, and I think it's going to be a little bit higher than what it is now, but we'll see. MDARS is the ones who decides on those issues,
those numbers.
Yeah.
But yeah, the license for grow this year is 100, but next year it's going up to $1,450 just to get a grow license. That's
not including the processing.
That's not saying anything new about the processing license. So we still have news coming down to us from that.
Yeah, makes sense.
For next year.
So that works.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay.
But we use the distillate. The distillate, when it comes out of the plant, is like in the consistency of corn syrup, only it's really a lot stickier, obviously. So we changed that form into a tincture using a high proof alcohol. So we have that for some autistic people that come to us. I use that tincture every morning, so I have a good dosage coming into me of CBD, where your recommended dose is 350 per dose 3 times a day. So that's a good intake for CBD to start affecting your system. So we used that and we changed it into a tincture, and then we also changed it into a lotion that will actually get rid of rashes, and then it also gets rid of the itch from rashes. It helps with eczema. It helps with pain. So this cream is just phenomenal. So I have a professor from Hillsdale University, and he is a search and rescue ex-Marine. And so his name is Joe Killam. I did some survivor classes with Joe Killam because he's a survival expert. So he knows all of the health benefits of a lot of different plants. So what he did is he took 10 acres and he planted things like mullein and just things that you can make medicine with for antiseptic and all those creams. So he put all of these together on 10 acres and made a salve out of all of those flowers. And so we're putting that together with our distillate to make a salve.
Nice.
And it's a super salve.
So I have a couple questions. Do you feel confident that your entire harvest has a place to go when the time comes, and if everything works out well for you?
Yep.
This year looks a lot better. Like I said, those friendships that we made, those connections that we made are really going to be, there for us in the future. So
nice.
When we started going to the seminars with you guys, the first things that we learned was to build a good team. So our team is phenomenal in the things that they can do.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So when you get testing done, I know that there's the very straightforward legal definition of what we're dealing with here, and it's got to be 0.3% THC or less in order to be
it goes like
by definition.
0.399.
Right. Along with that whole thing, are you seeing does the testing also show the further terpenes and flavonoid, the other components of the plant deeper into the plant? Do you look at that?
Well, it depends on where you get it tested. MDARS, they're really worried about THC. They're not worried about any other cannabinoids in the plant. So as long as you're compliant with their ruling, that's the only testing you really need. But we do take it further and we go to the state and get it certified by the medical by the medical certified labs, so we know what other things are in it for sure, because we don't want to pass anything on to our customers that we wouldn't want ourselves.
Jim's got a question. Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Hey guys, it's great to hear you guys are really passionate about what you're doing with hemp. I'm so glad to hear about it. The question I have is, tell me about any evasive critters out there. I assume that you guys are outside. What's your biggest threat out there? And then any surprises on like maybe badgers really loving hemp or something? You find badgers in your
well, mostly most of the animals like the cannabis plant when it's very young and tender. Once it gets to a certain point, it gets very fibrous. So animals don't like that fiber because it's very hard for them to chew and eat. So it'll get to a point where they might bite it, but usually if they bite it, they bite the tops off. So it kind of helps the farmer a little bit. Not always, but a little bit with topping, which adds more biomass to the plant. So nothing really eats it per se, but pests and bugs and stuff like that. So, bugs are really the biggest issue when it comes to the hemp. So
there's a hemp borer.
There's all kinds of bugs. There's, there's hundreds of bugs that will indulge on the plant. So you have to really, be aware of what you're using, what kind of bug you're treating. We use a lot of essential oils and natural things because we're, we want to be totally organic. We want to be organically certified. So there's certain things that you can and can't do in this process, to get organically certified. So we try to do as much organic stuff as possible for sure.
The fun thing about that question is that we are going to be working with the Michigan State University. We were going to work with Purdue, but our girl left there, so she's not there anymore. But we're going to knock those plants around and put sticky things underneath there so that we can see what kind of bugs are coming out on that. And then we'll send it off to Michigan State and they can give us a good idea of what
we have. That's a common trapping technique in order to determine insect populations, right? That's really cool that you're going to be able to do that for hemp. Probably their first exposure with hemp.
Yeah, because there's an emerald borer that it burrows itself into the stock.
It's a hemp borer, not an emerald.
Oops, I said emerald. I meant hemp. But it burrows itself into the stem and it'll block nutrients from coming through. So
those are unwanted.
Yeah, that's an unwanted.
Yeah, there's not really a whole lot of there is a whole lot of really good bugs, but there's more bad bugs out there than there is good.
What do you do about the borer when you see it? What's the treatment?
Essential oils, natural nematodes, fungus, and these stuffs, the fungus and the nematodes, you do not spray on the plant, you spray on the ground, and then the bugs travel through it, they eat it, and then it affects them, or the nematodes eat the larvae or the eggs, and that really kills them off quite well.
So telling me you use shrooms to
No,
I'm just playing.
I mean, those are happy bugs. If you're giving them some,
I may have used shrooms in the past.
I may have or may not have.
I cannot confirm or deny. So
you have the happiest garden in the entire Northland if you're putting magic mushrooms out on your compost.
But you did mention that a fungus is used in pest control.
Yes.
Right. And the nematodes, when you talked about nematodes, they go strictly into the roots to stop the production of larvae from that area. Is that right?
Yeah, nematodes are like a microscopic bug of themselves that eat the fungus, or not the fungus, the larvae and the eggs. That's what nematodes are. They're an actual microscopic bug.
We see nematodes oftentimes in indoor cultivation systems. Nematodes are frequently used with hydroponic systems or flood and drain systems or systems where you have reservoirs of water.
Mm-hmm.
Are they a protozoa?
Actually, I need water to activate the nematodes, so I put them through my drip irrigation.
Ah, that's sweet.
Yeah. So one of our fields has the drip irrigation system set up and the other fields are all natural.
Mhm.
So they
You
have
ever-
their like trees in mounds, you know, where you make a big basin for it and then
Mhm.
fill it up with water.
Nice. Do you ever see keeping the whole cycle in a greenhouse?
I do when it comes to smokable flowers, because in northern Michigan, our grow season is only about 90 to 100 days. And in those 90 to 100 days, the last probably month, we get a lot of moisture in northern Michigan. So it causes problems with mold and mildew. So if we had it in a place where we can control the climate a little better, we would never have problems with those molds and mildews. So yes, I do see it. And, you know, eventually if we want to, you know, keep all medical, we're going to have to move it all indoors anyway, because the hemp pollen will eventually degrade your THC in your medical plants over a period of time. So, you know, that's a big issue with a lot of hemp farmers and medical farmers, where they don't think they can get along. But there is plenty of ways of doing that. Yes, moving indoors is ultimately the best way of doing that, but there is other options.
Do you need male hemp plants specifically to make some products or to get some,
Well, it depends
texture?
on what. Yes, it depends on what which way you're going. So if you're doing CBD, CBG, you want to no males with your plants. But if you're doing grains and textiles, you want males with those plants, you know, to get the seeds, because you need a male, you know, you need that pollen for the female to pollinate to get those seeds.
Would people potentially, although, I mean, depending how big the field is, it might not be feasible, but is there a way to pollinate by hand so you don't have to just throw the stuff in the air? You can go by and brush it on.
Oh yeah, there's way, but you know, when it comes to big farm fields of grains or textiles, it's probably not feasible, because you would be out there the whole time pollinating stuff.
And the goal is to make sure it's uniform pollination across the whole field. And it seems like by hand would automatically mean some areas would just get more attention than others too.
Yeah, probably, you know, and it would be the cost of labor on something like that would be pretty, you know, pretty high.
But you wouldn't be, but you'd be reducing the risk. I'm not saying that it's feasible, but you'd be reducing the risk then of the stuff.
Oh, sorry.
You would be.
We're on a call right now. Hold on, Hannah.
Okay.
It would be reducing the risk of the pollen getting into and getting in on other, you know, gardens that
Yes,
are not trying to be.
Yeah, there is certain things you can do. We call them buffers in farming. So other, you know, like other flowers like sunflowers and, you know, stuff like that will collect all pollen. So if you have those buffers in between your fields, it does help with keeping the pollination really low on your fields. But
although it would be really cool for somebody to have the term pollen boy on their resume, though. I think that would be, you'd be really helping someone out, you know, inspire conversation. I was a pollen boy once.
Yeah, it would make me laugh for sure.
Hey, so we'll get to him in a minute, but we were just joined by the attorney, Thomas Lavigne, who also has a very rich background in hemp from an activist side and from a practical knowledge side, and in Hawaii as well as Michigan, and maybe points in between that he can describe.
Well, let's introduce Tom to Mark and Toni. Mark and Toni actually had a successful hemp farm in Michigan. You're already familiar with Tom Lavigne, though, aren't you, Mark? Toni?
Yeah.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
I'm not great with names. I remember faces. So.
He's
Good to see you.
Partner with Matt Abel in
in
the Cannabis Counsel. He's been on the board with MI Legalize and worked with all the. He's an activist and a criminal defense attorney and civil rights attorney, everything. So he's just been great for our movement. And as I said, had some concentration in hemp along the way, so that works out well for this conversation. What did you do in Hawaii, Tom? And welcome.
Well, that
Doug.
was my first bar exam. I went out there, and on the day after I passed the bar exam, I filed a lawsuit against the governor of the state of Hawaii and a state senator, a state representative, and the mayor of Honolulu, who were all accepting bribes from the Japanese Yakuza to steal land to develop the Royal Hawaiian Country Club, where Clinton played back then. Well, we were the guys who forced them to sort of curtail that golf course and make it into a target, more of a target course, rather than just blow over what really should have been categorized as rainforest, but they recategorized it as like Class A ag. And then all of a sudden they allowed golf courses in Class A ag. And there was some questionable foreign campaign contributions. And the Federal Elections Commission made them give all the money back, and it blew wide open. At the time, it was a pretty big amount of campaigns. It was the same group of people who were later accused in the Clinton household, White House, of what was it? The Lincoln bedroom renting of the rich Japanese guys. Yeah. Eugene Lum
Nice.
and those slime bags.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yep, that they would take some kickbacks from some rich foreigners to be able to sleep in Lincoln's bedroom and in the bed Lincoln slept in.
Yes.
Right. Yep. That was a big scandal back then.
Yeah,
Now I
same-
think it's just what Trump does normally. So
Right.
Right. That was interesting. That's where I read Jack Hare's book in Hawaii. I was a young lawyer and picked up a couple marijuana cases. I was spending more time on the Big Island. And that's where I read the book and was inspired really at that point, and became an activist to a degree out there, and really sort of an advocate to everybody I could talk to about it. And it's just been fascinating to see it finally come along and be legalized federally. Is really a great progression. I'm still pissed off about the 0.3% bullshit, you know.
Yes.
You know, so just a point about that. In the language for a while, we had under the state MRTMA, we did have it at 1%. That got changed last minute back to the 0.3.
in
I
an
was
early
pushing for that.
version,
I was
not
pushing.
the version that people signed a petition, but in a prior version, yes, it was 1%, and that would conform to some international standards. That 1%.
Yes.
So that
And
would
then-
make us more uniform with the rest of the world.
In an older Michigan legalized version, wasn't it like 3%? Like just.
I think so.
I
Maybe
think it was
repeal
just like
today or something.
3%.
Or no, that was even more simple. I
Not
forget.
0.3, it was 3.
I think there were some things we proposed initially to have in the petition that I think Marijuana Policy Project just said no. I
So
remember someone saying your decimal is in the wrong place. I remember that.
So I don't see like at some point it should be any real issue. You just decide I'm going to use these plants for this industrial purpose, and then you just fucking do it, you know. And
Yeah,
it doesn't-
especially if it's being made for plastic or something. I mean, give me a
Unless it
break.
has to be low for like a CBD cigarette, which is a specific thing, then you really
Right.
need to pull that off. But otherwise, no, you're going to manufacture it anyway. Who gives a shit?
The standard for non-human consumption should really be like zip, right? I mean, come on. If it like you said, if it's going to make plastic, it's going to make paper. If the seeds are going to feed human beings because it's a superfood, then who gives a rat?
Well, the U.S. is the only one who really cares about that 0.3. You know, Canada, they don't really care about what the point is, because they'll just take all that THC right out of the product.
What's the point? They say. Perfect.
Yeah.
The United States says 3.
Yeah, and every other country remediates it right out of the plant. So
Mhm.
why?
Well,
I was happy to see Michigan's MDARD did raise that in their comments to the USDA in January. I was on a panel with Gina up in Midland. We had a town hall, their cable TV station there, put something on with hemp, And I was kind of pushing Gina. I was like, well, the MMFLA is already has the law that it could accept it in. It's you guys that need to change it, you know. In other words, if it tests hot, why not sell it to a medical marijuana facility processor, you know? And sure enough, that made it into her letter to the USDA, not only challenging the 3%, but also to be able to, rather than just destroy order, you know?
Yeah.
If it tests out, it must all be destroyed. It's just absurd. And I think it helped that there are a bunch of hemp farmers in the audience. And, you know, I was emphasizing total loss, you know, all these dollars, all these farmers in the audience here would lose all their money. And Gina was kind of like, but, you know, she's good. I like, you know, and I'm glad that she put it in that letter. She didn't have to.
That's
But
awesome.
maybe we'll see something. And some U.S. Congress people are pointing to the 0.3%. It's been brought to their attention too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that was
could
the
be a
question
change.
people had was, can we put it in metric? And how do we put it in metric?
And for those that don't know, metric is the system that regulates the sale of medical cannabis and throughout Michigan. So what we're talking about is taking hemp that wouldn't qualify as hemp because it's greater than 0.3% THC content, and just treating it like medical marijuana and still treating it as a saleable component, as opposed to just having to destroy it because it's not compliant with the hemp regulations.
Yeah, to at least be able to process it into something that could pass under whatever the circumstances are would be a lot more practical. And we just take so long to get there with cannabis-based issues. The word marijuana or cannabis, whatever, gets attached to whatever you're talking about, and for some reason you can't be like practical or sensical about it.
Yeah.
Go through a bunch of extra hoops and.
Because when you extract into a distillate, you're gonna increase your number anyways.
And there are ways you can moderate all of that too by changing components of the distillate too, to make sure that your dosing is compliant and that you're really looking more like hemp and less like cannabis. There's so many ways to fix it. But again, we're in the infancy of this program. Letters like the one that Tom helped inspire to write, activism like Toni and Marc, making sure that their voices are heard by the people who make decisions. Some of these early on issues will get resolved in year 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I wanted to point out, and I don't know why they don't consider this, is the science of it all. When you have a plant and you cut it, it is still ripening and it's still going to change. Tomato changes. I don't think that's ever taken into account when it comes to hemp, especially.
They just want easy numbers. They want easy benchmarks to work with. They don't want complicated things.
Yeah, you satisfy the bureaucratic process, and then they move on with their lives. It seems.
Within 15 days of harvest, and they try to just do that.
I've seen hemp raise a 0.5 point from harvest to dry.
Sure.
The action of losing water, decarboxylates the plant itself, so it does artificially raise that, or not artificially, but actually raise that testable level. And Marc and Toni, you guys test while your cannabis is in the field still, right? So you can monitor its THC level during its growth cycle.
Yes, we do use gastrocatography equipment to make sure that we are compliant when we send our test in for MDAR's compliance test.
Cool.
We've said we said
Sorry.
MDAR. That's Michigan Department of Agriculture Rural Development. For those people that don't know, go ahead, Jamie.
Have you had any testing that determined that you were too hot on at least some segments or something of your harvest?
Yes, at the end when we turn stuff from biomass to distillate, all your cannabinoids raise up because you're concentrating, the flower. So yes, there is points where you can make it hot, yes, but like I said, we can remediate all that stuff out of there. We're just looking for that to be feasible for everybody, not just
But we were never hot in the field, and we passed our testing to harvest.
So is that tolerated then? So you pass when you're supposed to, just because there's a natural process that boosts those numbers. You're not held responsible for that. Doesn't become then.
You're right. You're right. I have a test that says that it's 1%. So, I mean 0.3%. Sorry.
Still, I mean, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some of
So I
the
have
regulations,
that-
so
So
easy to make a technical error. And then, like we talked about, the catastrophic effect Tom was describing of having to lose your entire harvest, or perhaps having to lose, even more than that. So,
Well,
Yeah.
that would, a lot
Yeah,
of
that's-
farmers would lose their farms if they had to destroy, over 20 acres of hemp. They would lose their farms.